My side business was embarrassing. To my family, the same business that generated the $10,000 monthly income I'd been sharing with them. Don't mention it at parties, my sister begged. I stopped mentioning the payments too. Hey Reddit, this is going to be long, but I need to get this off my chest. I'm 29 female, and I run what my family calls an embarrassing business. Spoiler alert, that embarrassing business was funding their entire lifestyle until I pulled the plug. Now they're panicking, and honestly, I'm enjoying watching it all burn. Let me start from the beginning. I've always been the creative one in the family. While my sister Natalie, 32, female, was getting her MBA, and my brother Derek, 27, male, was climbing the corporate ladder at some tech company, I was the one making things. Drawing, painting, crafting. Mom and Dad always treated it like a cute hobby, not a real career path. "That's nice, sweetie," Mom would say when I showed her something I'd made. "But what are you going to do for actual work?" Dad was worse. He'd literally pat me on the head like I was still 5 years old. "Artists starve, kiddo. You need to think practical." They pushed me toward accounting, told me I was good with numbers, even though I'd never shown any interest. I lasted exactly 1 semester at community college studying business before I dropped out. The disappointment was crushing. Family dinners became interrogations about my future plans, always with Natalie and Derek sitting there smugly with their degrees and career trajectories. The worst part was how they'd compare us constantly. Natalie got her MBA from a decent state school, and you'd think she'd cured cancer based on how much they celebrated. They threw her this huge graduation party, invited everyone they knew, made speeches about her accomplishments. When I dropped out, Mom cried for a week like I died. I moved out at 21 with my boyfriend Max. We got this tiny apartment in a sketchy part of town, and I started working retail to pay bills. Target specifically, 40 hours a week folding clothes and dealing with entitled customers who treated me like I was invisible. But at night, after Max fell asleep, I'd stay up creating. I taught myself graphic design through YouTube tutorials, learned Photoshop, Illustrator, the whole Adobe suite, started making digital products, printables, planners, wall art, that kind of thing. My setup was pathetic at first. Old laptop that took 5 minutes to boot up, free software trials I'd restart every month, a corner of our bedroom that served as my office. Max would wake up at 2 a.m. to find me still hunched over my computer, eyes burning, working on some new design. He'd pad into the kitchen, cook me something simple, and set it by my elbow. "You need sleep," he'd say. "Finish this, then rest. I've got breakfast in the morning." "I need this to work," I'd reply. Posted my first item on Etsy in 2019. It was a set of minimalist budget planners, sold for $4.99. I made exactly 1 sale that first month. Mom laughed when I told her about it. $4, honey. You made $4 this month." "It's a start," I said. Derek smirked across the table. "I made that in about 3 minutes at my job." Natalie didn't even look up from her phone. "That's cute, like a lemonade stand." But I kept at it, figured out what people actually wanted, started creating more products, expanded into printable wall art, wedding invitations, party decorations, social media templates. I'd spend my Target shifts mentally designing products, then rush home to create them. By month 3, I was making $200. By month 6, $800. By the end of that first year, I was pulling in $2,000 monthly. That's when I quit Target. Max was nervous. His salary from construction work covered rent and bills, but we had nothing extra. But I was confident. I'd figured something out that was working. My family's response: silence. They just didn't talk about it. When relatives asked what I did, Mom would say, "She does some online crafts thing," with this embarrassed laugh, then immediately pivot to Natalie's marketing director position or Derek's promotion to senior developer. I remember this one Thanksgiving specifically. My Aunt Carol was asking everyone about their jobs. She went around the table. Natalie talked for 10 minutes about her marketing campaigns. Derek explained his coding projects. Even Max got to talk about the houses he was helping build. Then Aunt Carol turned to me and said, "What are you up to these days?" Before I could answer, Mom jumped in. "Oh, LaTanya plays around on the computer and sometimes sells things online. Nothing too serious." "Derek, tell Carol about that award your company nominated you for." Plays around on the computer, like I was a kid on Club Penguin instead of running an actual business. That's when things got interesting, though, because while they were embarrassed by my online crafts thing, they also started having financial problems. Dad's small business, he runs an insurance agency, took a hit during COVID. Clients were canceling policies, cutting back, disappearing. He'd built the agency over 30 years, starting from nothing, and watching it crumble was destroying him. Mom's boutique clothing store was barely breaking even. She'd opened it 10 years ago with this dream of being a fashion entrepreneur, but she'd never really understood the business side. Just kept buying inventory that didn't sell and hoping things would magically improve. Natalie got laid off from her fancy marketing job when her company downsized. 6 months after bragging about her corner office and generous salary, she was back living with our parents, applying for jobs that paid half what she'd been making. Derek was making decent money, but had student loans that were crushing him. $60,000 in debt for that computer science degree. And the payments were eating his entire paycheck. Meanwhile, my Etsy shop kept growing. I'd figured out the algorithm, understood SEO, knew how to price products competitively. I expanded to multiple platforms, Creative Market, Gumroad, my own website with exclusive designs, reinvested everything into better equipment, professional software, premium design assets. By early 2022, I was making $6,000 a month. By mid-2022, I was consistently hitting $10,000. $10,000 a month from online crafts. That's when they started coming to me for money. Not openly at first. It was subtle, really subtle, like they'd perfected the art of asking without actually asking. Dad called one evening. "Just wanted to chat," he said. Hadn't talked to me in weeks. We made small talk for maybe 5 minutes before he casually mentioned the insurance agency was having a temporary cash flow issue and asked if I could lend him $1,500 for business expenses. Said he'd pay me back in a month when some big policy renewals came through. I said yes immediately. He was my dad. His business was struggling. Of course I'd help. The $1,500 became $2,000, became $3,500 over the next 3 months. Those big renewals never materialized. He never paid back a cent. Mom needed $800 for store inventory. Said she'd found this amazing deal on a new clothing line that would definitely sell. I sent the money that same day. The inventory sat in her store for 6 months before she had to clearance it at a loss. Derek wanted $600 to cover his loan payment that month. His car had needed repairs, and he was short. I transferred the money within an hour. Next month, same request. Then the month after that. Natalie, who'd moved back in with our parents after losing her job, needed $400 for job interview clothes. Professional wardrobe, she called it. Had to look successful to be successful. I bought into that logic and sent the money. She wore those clothes to exactly 2 interviews before deciding she needed new outfits because the style wasn't right. I said yes to all of it because that's what family does, right? You help each other. You don't keep score. You don't demand repayment. You just help. None of it was ever paid back, obviously. But I didn't push. I had the money. They needed help. And I figured maybe this would finally prove to them that my work was legitimate. Wrong. Instead, they started treating me like their personal ATM, while simultaneously being mortified by how I made my money. The cognitive dissonance was insane. I remember this one family dinner where Mom was showing off these new earrings she'd bought. $200, she said proudly, holding up her phone to show everyone the designer website. I knew I'd sent her $500 that week because she claimed the boutique's rent was due and she was short. But when Uncle Rob asked how business was going, she sighed dramatically. "Oh, you know how tough retail is these days. Barely scraping by. Every month is a struggle." Then she looked at me. "At least I have a real business, not just selling clip art on the internet." I just smiled and kept eating. But that comment stuck with me. I was subsidizing her lifestyle, paying for her designer earrings, and she had the audacity to call my work fake. The requests kept coming. Every month, someone needed something. Dad's car broke down, $12,200 for repairs that he swore he'd pay back when the agency recovered. Derek's girlfriend moved in and they needed furniture, $800 for a couch and kitchen table because his apartment was embarrassingly empty. Natalie's job search was taking longer than expected. $600 for another month's rent at our parents' house, even though they weren't charging her anything. Mom's store needed a new sign, $950 because the old one was dated and making the store look unprofessional. I tracked it all in a spreadsheet because I'm organized like that. Had columns for date, amount, recipient, stated reason, promised repayment date. In 2022 alone, I gave my family $34,750. That's not a loan. That's not an investment. That's just money I handed over because they asked, and I stupidly kept saying yes. And through all of it, Max kept me grounded, cooking when I worked late, rubbing my shoulders, telling me, "You can say no, babe. Rest. Let them figure it out." I should have listened sooner. The breaking point came at Natalie's engagement party last October. She'd finally landed a new job, not as prestigious as the old one, but decent pay at a small startup, and got engaged to some guy named Brandon she'd been dating for 6 months. Dad insisted on throwing this huge party. Catering, open bar, rented event space, the whole 9 yards. Who do you think paid for most of it? Dad asked for $4,000 just to get started with deposits. Mom needed $200 for decorations because everything has to be perfect. Natalie wanted $800 for a new dress because she couldn't possibly wear something from her closet to her own engagement party. I sent all of it without hesitating because I was genuinely happy for her. The party was at this fancy event space with floor-to-ceiling windows and chandeliers. Everyone who mattered to our family was there. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, their country club friends, Natalie's new boss, Brandon's family, who were apparently loaded. His parents owned some pharmaceutical distribution company and acted like they were royalty. I showed up in a simple black dress, brought Max, figured it'd be a nice evening celebrating my sister. Then I overheard the conversation that changed everything. I was near the bar, waiting for our drinks, when I heard Natalie talking to Brandon's mother, a woman named Patricia, who looked like she'd never worked a day in her life but had opinions about everything. She was wearing this cream-colored suit that probably cost more than my rent, and every time she moved, her jewelry clinked together like wind chimes. "So your whole family works in business?" Patricia asked, sipping her champagne. "Yes," Natalie said proudly, standing straighter. "Dad has his own insurance agency. Mom runs a boutique in the historic district. Derek works in tech at a really innovative startup." And she paused. I leaned closer, curious how she described me. My heart was actually pounding, hoping maybe this time she'd finally acknowledge what I'd built. "And your other sister?" Patricia prompted. "The one over there?" Natalie lowered her voice, but not enough. "Oh, LaTanya. She does online stuff. We don't really talk about it much. Bit embarrassing, honestly. She makes those crafty things people buy on the internet. You know, like printables and templates. Not really a career, more of a hobby that makes pocket money." The way she said crafty things and pocket money made it sound like I was selling knitted toilet paper covers at a swap meet instead of running a 6-figure business. Patricia made a sympathetic noise, like Natalie had just told her about a family tragedy. "Oh dear, well, every family has one, I suppose. At least she's doing something." They laughed together, my sister and this stranger, laughing about how embarrassing I was. I stood there, drinks in hand, feeling like I'd been slapped. This party I'd helped pay for, celebrating a sister who thought I was an embarrassment, not because I'd done anything wrong, not because I'd failed, but because my legitimate, profitable business didn't fit their image of success. I grabbed Max without saying a word, handed him both drinks, and started walking toward the exit. "What's wrong?" he asked, following me. "We're leaving." "But we just got here." "I know." We drove home in silence. Max knew better than to push when I was this angry. When we got to our apartment, he guided me to the kitchen, put a pot on the stove, and started cooking. "Eat first," he said gently. "Then talk." He plated pasta, set it down, and just listened while I poured everything out. The conversation I'd overheard, the years of dismissive comments, the way they took my money while being ashamed of me. When I was done, he squeezed my hand. "You don't have to prove anything to them. Rest tonight. Tomorrow, set your boundaries. I'm with you, now and when we buy that house next year." After he went to bed, I went straight to my office, pulled up my spreadsheet, and stared at that number. $34,750. $34,750 in 18 months. I'd funded their lifestyle, their business expenses, their wants and needs, while they told people I was an embarrassment, while they dismissed my work as a hobby, while they laughed about me behind my back. I added a new column, payments stopped, added another, promised repayment date, added one more, actual repayment amount. That last column was completely empty. Not a single dollar had ever been paid back. The next morning, Dad texted asking for $2,000 for the insurance agency's quarterly taxes. I read it, put my phone down, and went back to designing a new set of Instagram story templates. Didn't respond. Mom called that afternoon. I let it go to voicemail. She needed $1,500 for inventory restock at the boutique, some new designer she'd connected with. Deleted the message. Derek texted Tuesday. Student loan payment was due. Could I spot him $550? Left him on red. For 2 weeks, I ignored every request. It felt amazing. I'd been so conditioned to just say yes, to prove my worth by being useful, that I'd never considered simply stopping. Then Natalie called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "LaTanya, oh my God, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you for like a week." "Been busy," I said flatly. "What's up?" "So Brandon's parents want to take us all to dinner at this amazing steakhouse Friday night. Like really upscale, the kind of place where they print your menu without prices. I need to buy a new outfit because I can't show up in anything I already own. Patricia would judge me so hard. Could you send me like $600? I'll totally pay you back after my next paycheck, I promise." I let the silence hang for a moment. Really let it stretch out until it got uncomfortable. "No." "What?" I said no, Natalie. "But why? You always help out. It's not even that much money for you." I laughed. Couldn't help it. Always help out? Natalie, I've given this family over $30,000 in the past year and a half alone. Haven't seen a single dollar back. And at your engagement party, the party I helped pay for, by the way, you told Brandon's mom I'm an embarrassment. Silence. Long, heavy silence. You heard that? Every word about how I make crafty things and it's embarrassing. About how it's not really a career. Fun fact, my hobby makes more money than your real job. Actually, it makes more money than everyone in this family combined. LaTanya, I didn't mean it like that. Patricia's very traditional, and I was trying to what? Fit in? Impress her? You threw me under the bus to look good to some rich lady you barely know. That's not fair. We're family. Family helps each other. You're right, I said, feeling that anger rise up hot and righteous in my chest. Family does help each other. But family also doesn't treat each other like an embarrassing secret. Family doesn't take thousands of dollars while calling your work a hobby. Family doesn't lie about what you do to impress strangers. So no, you can't have $600 for a dress. Buy something from your closet, or better yet, ask Patricia, since she's so understanding about family. I hung up. Within an hour, my phone exploded. Natalie called 6 times. Mom called 8. Dad left this long voicemail about responsibility and not being petty over one little comment. Derek texted, saying I was being immature and making everything about me when Natalie was just trying to navigate a complicated social situation. I blocked all of them for 24 hours just to get some peace. When I unblocked them the next day, the messages were even more frantic. Mom crying about how I was tearing the family apart. Dad saying I was being financially abusive by cutting them off without warning. Derek calling me selfish. Natalie sending paragraph after paragraph about how hard things were for her, how stressed she was, how she needed her sister. I read through all of it. Then I sent one group text. For the past year and a half, I've sent this family $34,750. I have detailed records of every transaction, complete with dates, amounts, and the reasons you gave for needing money. None of it has been repaid, despite repeated promises. Meanwhile, you've spent that entire time embarrassed by my work, calling it a hobby, telling people I play around on computers, and literally laughing about me behind my back to strangers. Effective immediately, I'm done being your ATM. Don't ask for money. Don't expect money. Don't hint about money. We can have a relationship as family, but the financial support stops now. This isn't negotiable. Then I muted the conversation and went back to work. Max slid a cup of tea onto my desk, kissed my temple, and murmured, "Proud of you. Let's make dinner early and get some rest." The holidays were interesting. Thanksgiving? I didn't go. Sent a polite message saying Max and I were doing our own thing, having a quiet day together. Mom called, crying about how I was ruining the family tradition. I didn't answer. Christmas, they invited us over like nothing had happened. I was curious, so we went. The tension was immediate. Nobody mentioned money directly, but the elephant was wearing bells and a hat, dancing around the living room. The first thing I noticed was how different everything looked. The house was emptier. Furniture was gone. That expensive coffee table Mom had bought. The leather armchairs Dad loved. The walls had these perfect rectangles where artwork used to hang. The Christmas tree was smaller, decorated with old ornaments instead of the fancy, coordinated ones Mom usually bought. Dad tried the authority card during dinner. "You can't just cut off your family, LaTanya. That's not how this works." "Watch me," I said cheerfully, sipping my wine. Mom's voice cracked. "We're struggling, honey. Really struggling, and you won't even help." "You're right," I agreed. "I won't, because for 18 months I helped constantly while you treated me like an embarrassment. You made your choice then. I'm making mine now." Natalie pulled me aside in the kitchen while I was refilling my glass. She'd been crying. Her mascara was smudged and her eyes were red. "You're being cruel," she said. "Do you know how stressful things have been? Dad's business is failing. Mom might lose the store. Derek's girlfriend left him because he couldn't afford their apartment. And you just sit there with all that money acting like nothing matters." "Things matter," I said calmly. "That's the whole point. My work matters. My effort matters. My feelings matter. You all acted like none of that was true, so I stopped pretending it didn't hurt." "We never meant—" "Yes, you did. You absolutely meant it. Every single time you dismissed my work, every time you called it a hobby, every time you laughed about it, you meant it. You meant it because you believed it. The money didn't change that belief. It just made you hypocrites." She didn't have a response to that. Derek cornered me by the tree. "You know Mom and Dad might lose everything, right? The house, the businesses, all of it. And you could prevent that. You have the money." "Then they should probably make better financial decisions," I suggested. "Maybe stop spending beyond their means. Maybe actually run their businesses properly instead of using me as a safety net." "You've changed," he said accusingly, like it was a bad thing. "No," I corrected. "I stopped letting you take advantage of me. There's a difference. The old me would have kept helping while you all kept disrespecting me. The new me has self-respect." "It's just money, LaTanya. If it's just money, why do you need mine?" He walked away without answering. Max found me by the coat rack, squeezed my shoulder, and whispered, "You did great. Ready to go home." We left before dessert, went back to our apartment, and he made hot chocolate while we sat at the table planning next year. New product lines, a course launch, and touring a few starter homes on the east side. For once, the future felt like ours. January was when things really fell apart for them. Dad's business hit a crisis point. Turns out he'd been using my money to cover operating expenses rather than fixing the actual problems. When my payments stopped, the house of cards collapsed. Without that monthly cushion, he couldn't make payroll, couldn't cover the office lease, couldn't pay for the insurance on his policies. He had to lay off his only employee, a woman named Sandra, who'd worked for him for 15 years, and downsize his office space to a tiny room in a strip mall. I heard through my aunt that he cried when he had to tell Sandra she was being let go. Mom's boutique closed in February. She blamed the economy, said retail was dead, claimed nobody wanted to shop locally anymore. She didn't mention that she'd been using my money for inventory instead of actually marketing or adapting her business model. Didn't mention that she'd never learned basic business skills, just kept buying clothes she liked instead of clothes that sold. The going out of business sale lasted 2 weeks. My aunt said Mom looked devastated the whole time, practically giving away inventory just to empty the store. Derek's girlfriend moved out. Apparently, she was tired of living in a cramped apartment with a guy who couldn't afford furniture because he kept sending all his extra money to pay down loans from his expensive lifestyle choices. She had been covering most of their expenses for months, and when she finally looked at his finances, she realized he was making good money, but managing it terribly. She left in March. Derek had to move back in with our parents because he couldn't afford the apartment alone. And Natalie? Her new job wasn't going well. She'd been late several times because she couldn't afford to fix her car's transmission issue, the $12,200 repair that she'd normally have asked me for. Her boss was not understanding about it. When she showed up late for the 4th time in 2 months, they had a conversation about commitment and professionalism. She was on thin ice during her probation period. All of this I learned through family group chats I was still part of but never participated in. They'd complain to each other, occasionally throw passive-aggressive comments my way that I ignored. Derek posted about how family means nothing to some people with a sad face emoji. Natalie shared articles about narcissism with obvious implications. Mom posted inspirational quotes about forgiveness and letting go of grudges. I just kept working, kept creating, kept building my business while theirs fell apart. Then in February, Dad called, not texted, called, at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night. I answered because late-night calls from family usually mean emergencies. Someone's hurt. Someone's in the hospital. Something serious. "LaTanya, I need your help." "What's wrong? Is someone hurt?" No, nothing like that. I need money." I was quiet. Let that hang in the air. "The business is about to go under completely. I need $15,000 to make payroll and keep the doors open for another quarter. After that, I'll have new clients coming in and I can pay you back with interest, I promise." No. "LaTanya, please. This is my life's work. 30 years I've built this company. I can't just let it die. And in those 30 years, you never bothered to respect mine. You want $15,000 from the daughter whose work you called fake? From someone who makes pocket money with her little hobby? From the person you told people plays around on computers? This is different. This is important. And my business wasn't important? My financial contributions weren't important? Dad, I gave you over $34,000 in 18 months while you and Mom told people I did online crafts with that embarrassed laugh. You literally introduced me as your daughter, who sells clip art. You want help now? You should have shown respect then. You're really going to let my business die over hurt feelings? I'm not letting anything die. You did that yourself by mismanaging money and relying on your daughter's embarrassing business instead of fixing your own problems. You had 30 years to build a sustainable model. You chose not to. That's on you. Please, I'm begging you. I'll do anything. Then go back in time and respect me. That's what I needed. Not now, not when you're desperate. Back then, when it would have actually mattered." I hung up. He called back immediately. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail crying. Actual tears, saying I was killing him, destroying the family, being selfish. That he was sorry, so sorry he'd said those things. That he was proud of me now. That he needed me. That I was his daughter, and daughters help their fathers. I deleted it and went to bed. Max wrapped his arm around me as I lay down, kissed the top of my head, and whispered, "You don't owe them anymore, babe. You've done enough. We'll build our future, together." March brought the full meltdown. Dad's business closed. He had to declare bankruptcy. The insurance agency he'd worked 30 years to build, gone in 3 months without my financial cushion. I heard he tried to sell it, but nobody wanted to buy a failing agency with no clients and no assets. Mom had to get a job at Macy's. Part-time, minimum wage, folding clothes, and dealing with customers. The same mom who'd acted superior about having a real business was now doing retail work she'd looked down on when I did it. My aunt said she came home crying almost every day. Derek had to move back in with our parents because he couldn't afford his apartment alone. His ex-girlfriend had been splitting costs. And without her or my money, he was screwed. 37 years old, sleeping in his childhood bedroom, working 2 jobs to pay down the loans he'd racked up trying to live above his means. Natalie's car died completely. The transmission issue turned into a full breakdown, and she didn't have money for repairs. She'd been taking Ubers to work, which cost more than fixing the car would have, but she didn't have the upfront cash. After 3 weeks of consistent lateness, despite the warnings, her boss fired her during her probation period. She was back to being unemployed, living with our parents, applying for jobs with a gap in her resume she couldn't explain. All of this happened while I was hitting $12,000 monthly revenue. I'd expanded into selling Canva templates, started a small online course about digital product creation, hired a virtual assistant, and was living my best life with Max in our cozy apartment, planning for the future. The begging intensified. Mom showed up at my apartment in April, just appeared at my door with red eyes and mascara running down her face, looking like she hadn't slept in days. "Please, LaTanya, we need help. Any amount? 50, 100, something." I leaned against the doorframe, not inviting her in. "Remember when you introduced me to your book club friends? What did you say I did?" She looked confused, mascara still smudged under her eyes. "What?" "You said I played around on the computer. Those were your exact words. LaTanya plays around on the computer and sometimes sells things, like I was a child with a lemonade stand." "I didn't mean—" "You did mean it. You were ashamed of me. You took my money happily, but couldn't stand to admit where it came from. You'd rather tell people you were barely scraping by than admit your daughter's hobby was keeping you afloat. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm really sorry. I was wrong. Your business is legitimate. You're successful. You're talented. I should have said that. I should have been proud. I should have bragged about you. You should have, I agreed. But sorry doesn't pay bills, does it? You taught me that. Remember when I was 22 and I asked for help with my first month's rent because I'd just lost my job? You said I needed to learn responsibility, that sorry doesn't pay landlords, that I needed to figure it out on my own because that's how adults handle problems. That was different. Was it? Because from where I'm standing, it's exactly the same. You wanted me to struggle to learn a lesson? Now it's your turn. Welcome to adulthood, Mom. She left crying. I felt nothing. Dad tried a different approach. He sent me this long email in May about how he'd always loved me, how he was proud of me, how he'd been wrong to dismiss my work. It was clearly written by someone else, probably Derek, because Dad still thinks LOL means lots of love and signs his emails Love Dad, like he's writing a letter in 1952. The email ended with, I'm not asking for money. I just want my daughter back. I miss you. I miss us. Can we please talk? Can we fix this? I know I failed you, but I want to do better. I read it 3 times, almost replied, almost picked up the phone. Then I noticed the subject line, please help. So he was asking for money, just trying to be subtle about it, trying to manipulate me with feelings first, then slip in the request. Classic dad move. I deleted it and blocked his email address. Natalie tried the guilt approach. She sent me pictures throughout May and June of Brandon's family at fancy restaurants, on vacation in the Hamptons, at yacht parties, living their best life. Then she sent pictures of herself eating ramen, wearing old clothes with holes, looking miserable in her childhood bedroom. Is this what you want from me? She texted. To suffer while you have money, while you live in your nice apartment and I'm sleeping in the bed I had in high school, while you're successful and I can't even afford to fix my car? I answered, I want you to understand that money isn't free. Work has value even if you think it's embarrassing. People deserve respect regardless of their career path. Success isn't about having the right degree or the right title. It's about working hard and building something. You never learned those lessons because I made it too easy for you. So yes, this is what I want. I want you to struggle enough to learn what I learned when nobody would help me. She blocked me after that. I didn't care. June brought the call. I'd been half expecting, but still dreading. Natalie was pregnant. Surprise. She and Brandon had decided to move up the wedding because of it. They wanted to be married before the baby came, but she needed help with medical bills because her job, the one she'd lost, had health insurance. Now she didn't, and prenatal care is expensive. The call came from Derek this time. Look, I know things have been tense, but Natalie's in a tough spot. She's family. She's going to have a baby. We're having a family meeting Sunday to figure out how to help her. You should be there. We need to talk about this like adults. Will there be an apology? I asked. A real one, from everyone, for treating me like an embarrassment while taking my money. Everyone's sorry, LaTanya. We all made mistakes, but we need to move forward. We need to focus on helping Natalie right now. I've moved forward, I said flatly. You all need to catch up, and Natalie is not my responsibility. Brandon's family has money. They can help, or she can apply for Medicaid, or Brandon can get a better job. But I'm done being the family solution to every problem. You're being heartless. She's having a baby. And I'm sure she'll be a great mother. But that's not my problem. You all made sure I understood that my problems weren't your concern. Now you get to learn the same lesson. I didn't go to the family meeting. Found out later they tried to set up a GoFundMe for Natalie. It raised $340, mostly from Brandon's family, who apparently felt bad for her. Our family's friends, the ones they'd been so desperate to impress, donated nothing. A few left comments like, doesn't she have family who can help? Turns out people don't want to donate to someone whose family won't even help them. And our family couldn't help because they'd driven away the person who'd been funding everything. The irony was delicious. The wedding happened in July. Small courthouse thing, just immediate family and Brandon's parents. I wasn't invited. Mom sent me pictures anyway, trying to make me feel guilty for missing it. Natalie in a simple white dress she'd probably borrowed. Dad in an old suit that didn't fit right anymore. Mom looking exhausted in her Macy's clothes. All I saw was a small, sad ceremony that could have been beautiful if they'd managed money better. if they hadn't relied on me, if they'd treated me with respect instead of shame. Max sat beside me as I scrolled through the photos, shaking his head. "Don't let them rewrite this in your mind," he said. "They built this. You just stopped carrying it for them." Later that night, lying in bed, he kissed my forehead. "When we buy our house next year, I want it to be ours. No shadows from them, no one hanging over us." "For once," I whispered, "the future feels like it's really mine." Sometimes I wondered if I should feel guilty. Lying in bed with Max one night in August, we were talking about maybe buying a house with my business income, planning our future, laughing about how he wanted a garage big enough for his tools. Then his voice went soft. "Do you ever feel bad about cutting them off?" "Sometimes," I admitted. But then I remember Natalie calling me an embarrassment. Mom's apologetic laugh when people asked about my work. Dad's "artists starve" comments while cashing my checks. Derek's smirk about me making $4 in a month. And I feel less guilty. Max kissed my shoulder and pulled me close. "They made their choices. You made yours. You don't owe them your peace." He was right. The thing is, I could have helped. I had the money, more than enough to solve all their problems. But throwing money at them wouldn't fix anything. It would just restart the cycle. They'd take it, feel temporarily relieved, then go back to the same patterns that got them here in the first place. And they'd still be embarrassed by me, still dismiss my work, still tell people I play around on computers. They needed to learn what I'd learned, that respect matters more than money, that you can't build a life on someone else's foundation, that success means standing on your own. In September, Derek sent me an email, professional, formal, almost like a business letter. He said he'd been doing personal reflection and therapy, realized they'd all treated me unfairly, understood why I'd cut them off, wasn't asking for money or reconciliation, just wanted to apologize. I appreciated that email. It felt genuine, different from the manipulative attempts before, so I responded, said I appreciated the apology, that I was open to talking, but things would be different now. We met for coffee in October, just us, no family, no agenda, just two siblings sitting across from each other. "I get it now," he said, hands wrapped around his mug. "What you were saying about respect. I was so caught up in traditional success markers, degree, corporate job, salary, title, that I couldn't see you'd built something real. Something better than what I had, honestly." "Thanks," I said cautiously. "I'm working 2 jobs now," he admitted. "Day shift at my tech job, night shift doing data entry. It sucks. I'm exhausted all the time. Haven't seen friends in months, but I'm paying down my loans without anyone's help, and I get it now. How hard you worked. How much effort it took to build your business while we were dismissing it. While I was smirking about your $4 sale, you were learning skills and building something that would change your life." I just nodded. "I don't expect anything from you," he said, "but I wanted you to know I'm sorry. Really sorry for all of it, for every dismissive comment, every time I acted like your work wasn't real, every time I took your money while disrespecting how you made it. You deserve better. You deserved a family that celebrated you." We talked for 2 hours. He told me about therapy, about working on himself, about moving out of our parents' place into a tiny studio apartment he could barely afford, but was proud of because he was doing it himself. I respected that, respected him finally taking responsibility. Mom and Dad tried their own apology in November. They invited me to dinner at their condo, just the 3 of us. The place was smaller than I expected. 1 bedroom, barely any storage, furniture from Goodwill. Everything looked different. They looked different. Mom seemed older, tired, like the past year had aged her a decade. Dad's shoulders sagged, like the weight of his failed business never left. As soon as I sat down, Mom blurted it out. "We're sorry." Her voice cracked. "We treated you terribly. You deserve better from us. You deserve parents who celebrated your success instead of being ashamed of it." Dad nodded, his hands clasped on the table. "I was wrong about everything. Your work is real. You're successful, more successful than I ever was. Honestly, you built something from nothing. And instead of being proud, I was embarrassed. That's my failure, not yours." "You should have," I said quietly. "You should have been proud. I gave you so many chances to be proud, but you chose shame instead." Mom reached across the table. "Can we start over? Try to be a real family again? We miss you. We love you. We want to do better." I thought about it, really thought about it. "Maybe," I said, "but things will be different." "Different how?" Dad asked. "I'm not your safety net anymore. You need to manage your own finances. You need to live within your means. And you need to respect what I do. Not just tolerate it because you need money. Not just accept it because you have no choice. Actually respect it. Actually be proud of it. Actually tell people what I do without that embarrassed laugh. We can do that, Mom said quickly. We will do that. And no more asking for money. No hints, no emergencies, no, just this once. If we're going to rebuild, it has to be as equals, not me funding you. They both nodded, almost too eagerly, probably because they had no choice. Probably because they'd hit bottom and realized I wasn't coming to save them this time. That night, back at our apartment, Max set down 2 glasses of wine and curled up next to me on the couch. You handled that perfectly, he said. They'll either step up or they won't. But either way, you've set your terms. For the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't scared of losing them, because I finally had myself. December rolled in cold and quiet, but for me, it was the first holiday season that didn't feel like a performance. Max strung lights across our balcony while I worked on new product designs at the kitchen table. When he came in, cheeks red from the wind, he kissed the top of my head. You know, he said, this is the first year we get to make our own traditions. No drama, just us. We cooked together. He roasted chicken. I made mashed potatoes and spent Christmas Eve watching movies under a blanket. No frantic texts from family asking for a little help. No guilt calls about me ruining the tradition. Just peace. I did get a card in the mail, though, from Mom and Dad. Inside was a short handwritten note. We're proud of you. Love, Mom and Dad. No requests. No conditions. Just that. I stared at it for a long time before setting it on the mantel. It wasn't everything, but it was something. January came with momentum. My shop hit $15,000 that month. New templates, collaborations, and the online course I'd launched were doing better than I'd dreamed. Max and I sat down one night with notebooks and spreadsheets, planning the next step. House hunting, he grinned, tapping his pencil against the page. You're making enough. I'm saving from construction. We can finally stop renting. Something small, I said. Cozy, with a home office for me and a garage for you. Done, he said, like it was the easiest promise in the world. Meanwhile, Derek kept his word. He texted occasionally, updating me about therapy, about paying down his loans. Never asked for money, never tried to guilt me. Natalie, though, sent me a single message in February. A picture of her newborn baby girl, swaddled in pink. The text read, "She deserves an aunt who loves her." I stared at the photo, at the tiny face that hadn't done anything wrong, at the manipulative words attached. Max glanced over my shoulder, frowned, and said, "If you want to be in that baby's life, it has to be on your terms, not theirs." I didn't respond to Natalie, not yet. By spring, Dad called, not to ask for money, but to tell me he'd gotten a part-time consulting job with a friend's insurance firm. It's not much, he admitted, but it's honest, and I'm handling my own bills. Mom had moved up to full-time at Macy's, even managing a few new hires. They sounded tired but steadier. Good, I said simply. That's how it should be. There was a pause, then Dad's voice softened. I know it's late, but I really am proud of you, LaTonya. I believed him this time. April brought an offer letter for me to speak at a digital business conference. They wanted me to talk about scaling a creative side hustle into a 6-figure brand. I almost laughed when I read it, remembering all the times my family told me I was playing around on the computer. Max hugged me tight when I told him. Look at you, he said. From Target cashier to keynote speaker. I hope they serve champagne because I'm bringing a toast. The day of the conference, I stood in front of a packed room, lights hot on my face, slides behind me showing growth charts and product mock-ups. And all I could think was, this is mine. I built this. Afterward, a woman came up, tears in her eyes, and said, my family laughs at my Etsy shop too, but hearing your story, maybe I'm not wasting my time. You're not, I told her. Don't let them shame you out of your success. That night, back at the hotel, Max poured us wine and clinked his glass against mine. To our future house, he said. To our peace. To you. I smiled, a weight lifting from my chest that I didn't even know I'd been carrying. To respect, I added, because without it, none of the rest matters. And for the first time in my life, I truly believed it.